Oh, hello, hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. It is 10 a.m. So we are going to get this mastermind kicked off here in the first few minutes. I'm going to give some people some time to get logged in. Well, so just to kind of get the conversation going, at the end of the day, we are here to just be organic. So the whole purpose of just honestly just doing this job is that we are all human, right? Like we are all human. And the reason why I had created this mastermind group called Building on Purpose is because I think sometimes we float away from that a little bit. We start to get stuck in this just copying and pasting what everybody else is doing. And then all of a sudden, when you're not aligned with yourself, when you're not aligned with your purpose and what you're trying to do this business for, who you're doing this business for, the big why behind it, building on purpose just to me was like, yep, this is that foundation. And that can apply to so many areas of your life. But I definitely think that there's different areas of your business that ultimately at the end of the day, we realtors will sign up for anything that's going to be a quick fix, can fix this in my business. And then all of a sudden you're over here like, you're not even spending that same time and attention towards like what you're doing for your business, for your life. What's crazy is that, so as I introduced, this is Dustin Wright for anyone who may know him, may not know him. Dustin has been a mentor of mine for a big chunk of my real estate career. And there was many times when real estate was going really well for me and I was running to him going, it's broken, it's broken. Like it just, I kept asking him, help me fix something in my business, help me fix something in my business. And Dustin would end up going, how many date nights are you going on? And I'm like, that's super strange. Like, why would this guy all of a sudden be asking, like, how are you taking care of yourself? How many date nights are you going on? How are you and Josh? How's the family? And I'm like, dude, I'm coming to you because I'm having a lead problem. I'm having an admin problem, and it always ended up coming back to this place of going, you can be working on your business all day long, but if you're not working on the things that matter the most, then no matter if you're making $100,000 or $1 million, it's never going to feel good if you're not liking the purpose that you're doing it for. So today's call is going to be very specific because we wanted to talk about wealth. Because that is definitely a subject that I don't know. I think because I grew up not around. So that psychology of money. I don't know if anybody, and please use the chat, everybody. And we would love to see faces. I see everybody joining right now, and I would love to see some faces. So that way it's not just me and Dustin looking at each other. That would be a very interesting call. So we don't care what you look like. We don't care if you're in the car. Just we're here. We're all human.
I mean,
But
look,
yeah,
Danny, I know that I'm so handsome, and I know that I just make everyone intimidated by how good looking I am, that I completely understand. No one want to turn their cameras on. I
you guys.
apologize to my wife all the time. I'm like, I'm sorry. I used to be a handsome guy. I don't know what happened. I am not aging well. Like, it's just, it's all I can do to, hang on to what hair is still attached, and I mean, the just for men, like painting in the color of my face, like, just can't do it.
Well, is that why you're doing trendy glasses? Is that why you're doing trendy glasses now? Because you're like
Yes.
strapped.
Yes. This is my daughter's idea, just so you know.
Oh,
Because I have my normal old man readers, and she's like, Dad, you have to have better readers. They make better glasses than that. So,
you're so lucky to have her.
yeah, 21-year-old daughter. That's what happens, right? So,
Yeah, she's gonna keep you in the loop there. Well, everybody, we want to see if you can. So cameras on if you can. But today is about building on purpose, and I would love to have Dustin share his heart on this whole subject about wealth and what some of you may not see. But if you can at least use the chat inside this Zoom room, so that way, if you guys want to raise your hand or have something to say or have some kind of input, we would love to see that. And I'll keep an eye on it because Dustin gets very passionate about this subject.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, I won't get too worked up, right? But yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to hang out and talk because it's just like a continuous conversation that you and I've had for years, right? So I will kick it off with a story. So when I first graduated college, I moved to Miami, Florida, which is where I met my wife. But I worked for an advertising company, and we wrote ads for on hold music because back then there was no internet, and I've had to describe this to my children. They can't imagine a world without internet. But back in the day, you would call for everything, booking a plane ticket. You call and you would sit on hold, and then you would buy a plane ticket over the phone. And that's how you did it. And so we wrote ads, like Southwest Airlines was one of my accounts, and we wrote ads for Southwest Airlines, Hilton Hotels, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Those were my accounts. And so I was really good at sales, and I was doing that. And the CEO was a new hired gun CEO that came in to the company, and his name was Rick, and he took me under his wing. And this guy, he was basically what we call a turnaround CEO. They would bring him into companies, and he would be a CEO for a couple of years and move on to the next one. And he was very wealthy, and so he came down to Miami, took over this company. I was kind of the up and comer rock star salesperson, whatever. And he invited me over, and we started hanging out because he and I were also the two single guys. And I was thoroughly impressed with him. Armani suits, Rolex gold watches. He had a yacht. He lived on his yacht in Miami, and that was his home. And so, anyhow, he invited me over to the yacht. And when I got out to the yacht, I was hanging out with him, and I'm just like, I'm enamored. I'm thinking, this guy's got it figured out. I'm going to do everything this guy tells me to do because I want what he's got. And I started hanging out with him. And then it wasn't the first time, it was the second time he invited me over. We were hanging out, and I noticed there was a picture frame sitting on basically in the main deck in the cabin of the yacht. And it was a picture of his son. And I was like, oh, cool. That's a picture of your son. He's like, yeah, he goes, he's about your age. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was like, does he, come down and stay with you very much? Or like, cause he still lived in New York or whatever. And he's like, yeah, my son and I don't really talk. And I was like, oh, like at all? And he's like, yeah, he goes, the whole thing when I split up with his mom. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's terrible. I was like, okay, so yeah. So anyhow, he's like, yeah, but don't worry about it. He goes, he goes, you're kind of the son I always wanted to have anyways. And I was like, oh, okay, which made it more weird. And so I was like, okay, so it, I talked to him and I asked him, I was like, so your wife, like his mom, and bottom line, he was on his third wife, didn't talk to his son. He had a daughter with another woman that he had hooked up with that he didn't even know her name. He just knew he had one out there. And yet I realized in that moment, I'm sitting here and I am enamored with a man's possessions, position, and money. And yet he had no friends and no life, that he wanted to hang out with a 20-year-old kid, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's rough.
that's what a horrible life that he actually built. And that stuck with me. And, and it can't be lost on any of us that, you know, the old biblical phrase, right? What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And the more I got to know him, I realized that's actually what had happened to him, is there was no soul. He would walk into a company, lay off people, fire people. He didn't treat people very well. And he would go close, consolidate companies, because that's what happened to that company. It got closed and consolidated, and I was laid off in the third round. And because he liked me, I was laid off in the third round and not the first. That's what he told me. So
Oh,
I got an extra month's worth of income from him because he liked me. That was it. And the company was sold off, bought, and I moved on. The reason why I tell you that is there's nothing intentional about what any of us do. He didn't intentionally seek that path. He didn't intentionally pursue that for his life. That's not what he was after. In fact, he still believed, like that was the one thing I asked him, is he's like, no, I still do all of this for my family to pay for them. And I realized that it doesn't matter how much money you actually deliver or make for your family. They will never care about that. They will care about what they get from you. They will care about their time. And so anyhow, when Danny, we talked about this several times, is if I'm building an incredible life, there's no matter what, if I don't reset some things in my brain in terms of how I view money and how I interact with money, I will never be wealthy. So I have to reprogram because a lot of us have been programmed to interact with money in the wrong way. And because we've been programmed to interact with, we just have to fix like we literally have two little switches we have to flip in our brain. So then we see it different. So we interact with it differently. Okay. So I wanted to give you that kind of that setup of this is the basis of kind of our talk today. And I want you to remember that guy's name was Rick. So I want you to remember the name Rick. Okay.
Okay.
Because Rick is the perfect example of the lives. And by the way, I know a lot of people in this business. I've been in real estate 23 years. I know a lot of people. I've been around a lot of top producing agents. I've coached a lot of people, and I've seen people build incredible businesses and completely destroy their lives in the process.
Right.
I mean, I've witnessed it. I can't tell you how many times I've witnessed it. And so like when Danny says I get passionate about this, I get passionate about it because for your family's sake, you know?
Yeah. Tell me this real quick because I think that there's something, and this is something that I came across because there's this book called Psychology of Money. I'm sure there's a bunch of different books about this.
Mhm.
And again, a lot of times people are trying to solve a problem here, right? In real estate, right? Where they got into real estate either for the flexibility, they got in real estate because of the unlimited income you can make. I know for me, for sure, it's funny when I got into real estate, my mindset was literally staying on course of I need to just replace what I was making in my previous job, and what I was making in my previous job was between 30 to $40,000. And the way my husband and I had built up what we thought our adult life would look like is I'm the fun money, right? Like I'm the person who I have a job that's flexible. So for us to have kids, obviously getting into real estate, that made sense. Like I just need to be able to run off school schedules, right? I want to be able to drop off, pick up, do whatever I need to do. And
Mhm.
then again, if I can make 30 to $40,000, but what is so interesting about money is that I grew up always in a scarcity mindset household. I grew up in the fact that money is limited. That money is hard to get. That I also grew up in a house of parents who didn't handle money well, right? Like I saw a car get repoed. So, there's been so many things that I didn't know was being programmed in my head. And a lot of our fights, the family, origin that I grew up in, a lot of the fights were about money. And so it's interesting not knowing what was kind of getting programmed into me. And when I started to make money, I made more money than what I needed to make, and then all of a sudden my lifestyle started to change. And that's that part where again, the whole purpose of this whole mastermind is that just the true, those, that word on purpose, with a purpose, being intentional. So it's amazing because, like you said, he probably wasn't intent. He probably didn't start that whole idea of going like, oh, I'm going to be this guy with a yacht and I'm going to do all this. Like that was, it just, it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. It literally just led into that. And that's why I say is there's some things that happen in how we relate to money. And this is the blessing and curse of real estate is when we finally figure something out, most of us that get into real estate didn't come from money, like my brother and I are the first white collar workers in our entire family. Everybody in my entire family are blue collar workers, factory workers, construction, you name it. That's what my family comes from. So, like, my dad can't believe that my job is to talk to people all day in an office. Like, that's bananas to him, that I'm not out sweating my guts out outside somewhere. So, just that whole thing, a lot of us come from that kind of background. And so, our programming in terms of how we perceive money is actually part of our socioeconomics, right? Like the socioeconomics we're given, like that's what you're saying, Danny. The socioeconomics that you grew up in was your concept of what money is. And basically, here's where it comes from. When you don't come from a lot of money, I don't care if you're poor, middle class, whatever, if you're just not wealthy, how you handle money is one, you value money over time. So that's fixed number one. We value money over time. And that's the problem. That's why it's like, people will go to the mall like now I loathe the mall. And it's because it's such a massive waste of time only for me to spend money. So I just see that as it's time times money equation equals a negative quotient every time. And so where I'm like, are you kidding? Especially ever since Amazon invented, I'm like, are you kidding? I need a pair of black pants. Boom, boom, done. I go to Nordstrom, it's direct delivered. Like, bang, I'm done. Right. So, what I'm saying is that's the first thing we start with. We value money over time, and it's part of our socioeconomics that we tend to start with. Then the second thing that we also have to go figure is we don't know the difference between an asset and a liability. And so when we don't know the difference between an asset and a liability, liabilities lose value, assets hold or gain value.
Mm.
And so what we do is, and this happens to do, this is why it's like, well, you guys are in real estate. If you go drive, this is what's always crazy to me. If you go drive through the poorest neighborhood that you can think of, are the cars crappy or are they nice? The cars are always nicer in a horrible neighborhood, right? And yeah, exactly. Thank you. It's like you can see it to where there's a visible thing. Well, a car is actually, other than a boat, which I own one, so no stone thrown, okay. But other than a boat, it is the greatest liability of anything you can spend your money on. So simple economics lesson, and I like to use the car as an example. And Danny's already getting me like, "Ooh," she's already cringing. She's already feeling it. Okay. Now, unless you
Feel
own a business,
feel picked on.
yes, unless you own a business and your business owns your vehicle and pays your vehicle and pays your lease payments, that is the exception to the rule. But outside of that, if I personally purchase a car, and especially if I get a car payment, I have a triple negative liability. Okay. I have basically there's three categories of liabilities. A liability loses value, meaning it deteriorates, depreciates in value, which the second a car leaves a lot, it loses value. A brand new car typically loses an average of $1,500 the moment you drive it off the lot. It could be brand new. You could drive it off the lot and immediately return it. It's automatically worth $1,500 less. So, so depreciation value. Then you've got maintenance and care value. So the maintenance and care, you're putting more money into something just to keep it operational. All the while it's losing its value. And then when we take a loan, we're paying interest on top of the money that we borrow. So we're actually paying more money than the car is even worth than the sticker price that we actually paid for it. So that's what you call a triple negative liability. Okay. So, but here's the thing. We look at that, and don't get me wrong, in real estate, off our car is truly our office. So it's a necessity, it's a dependency, it's like a cell phone. It's you gotta have it, you can't live without it, I get it. It's totally fine. The thing is how we relate to money. And when the way we relate to it is, we will often find ourselves acquiring liabilities, and we acquire so much in liability that we don't actually reallocate our income towards assets.
Mm.
Okay. We also do the same thing socioeconomically based on our surroundings. We do the same thing with relationships. We work tirelessly to invest and spend our energy, time, and even resources into relationships that are not assets. They're liability relationships,
Let's talk about that. Oh, that's painful.
relationships that lose value, right? Instead of relationships that have assets. And that's why there's a correlation. I love it. You guys forgive me. I'm a follower of Jesus. And so he has these quotes, right? And so one of the quotes is, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. But I want you to hear, it literally says it in that way. It doesn't say where your heart is, there your treasure will be. Like, I think his words were on purpose every time. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be. So where I invest is where my heart will follow. Does this make sense? So I think about that so much is not only the way we interact with money is just a descriptive of how we interact emotionally.
Yep.
So the way I spend my money, the way I allocate my resources, if I spend my money on liabilities, then emotionally I'm also spending on liabilities, which also means I'm not investing into assets.
Right. Right. And I honestly, so I was gonna say it's kind of like going back to that Rick story, right? Where it's like, he was probably spending a lot more time on his job, his role, his all the things, and then all of a sudden it was like again where you kind of do it's kind of almost like it's a little poisonous, I guess, when you start getting to the point where if you don't have a plan for your money, when let's say you get into a season and money actually does roll in, you kind of don't know what to do with it. And so in that moment, then you're starting to fill in. I would probably say if I had to take my own story and reflect on that, I would probably say I would fill in the gaps. I was filling in gaps and then obviously I was filling the wants, right? So, especially on those vision boards, oh my gosh, just putting on vision boards and you're putting the nice car, you're putting the nice vacation, you're doing all those things. And essentially you're like, okay, cool. Like I remember the very first year I made six figures, right? I made $100,000 Lexus on my vision board and it was a very sporty sedan Lexus. And I was 8 months pregnant when I went and bought that Lexus. And I think that people laughed at me because, of course, the one I chose is F Sport, had a really tiny back seat. They were looking at me like, "You're about to put a car seat in that?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah, it was on my vision board. I'm going to get this Lexus." But there was a lot of things that I actually I was valuing these things to basically help me build the self-esteem and the confidence, right? So I was essentially looking at status, right? I was looking at how I was seen. So when I'm like, if I drive up in a Lexus or I have these nice things, then I think people like will put me in a higher status and I will be able to kind of roll with the big guys and I would be able to again earn that position. But the interesting part, again, as far as like, I think that I'm hoping if anybody comes out of the call today is just being able to learn that framework and that grounding effect to be able to just go, where am I valuing time or money or what does wealth really look like? What am I actually working for? Because I've absolutely have flipped it to where I was on a path to get all of the nice things. And then once I got all the nice things, I felt pretty empty.
Yep.
And that's, of course, where I'm so grateful for, finding Jesus Christ and helping me through that. But the funny part now is that I'm in that season where I'm like, I want time. I want everything to do with time to, I am bougie. So like, I don't know. There is still something where I'm accepting the fact that I am still a bougie person, but it's truly being able to go again, filtering out, is this an asset? Is this a liability? And where am I essentially treasuring? Where am I putting my treasures? So how would you help someone out, I guess, as far as just like, again, as they're in this season right now, right? February, like
Yeah.
what's like if we're working on how we're spending time.
Yeah, and we should be, right? Because that's what I say is the level up. Well, put it this way. Here's this. I'll give you a quick story setup to help illustrate the point, so I can kind of tell you where I'm going. When I turned 40, I'm more than 40 now, and when I turned 40, I had achieved some goals, and so I was going to buy something for myself. I told my wife I was going to pre-plan my midlife crisis. So that way I wouldn't try to trade her in for a 25-year-old. Right. And so I was going to be smart about it. And so I was going to buy myself something that seemed a bit ridiculous. And so I was going to buy a motorcycle and I picked it out and we actually went, like I took the wife, kids, and we're sitting on the motorcycle and I'm going to buy this motorcycle. Okay. And I get off the bike and I'm going to go in and I'm going to pay cash for it. I'm ready to go. And my wife goes, Dustin, she goes, I only have one problem with you buying the motorcycle. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to put my life at risk. She's like, no, you're going to be by yourself. She's like, you don't like being by yourself. She's like, she goes, the only time you like being by yourself is in the morning. She goes, are you going to go for motorcycle rides in the mornings? And I was like, well, no. She's like, Dustin, do you have friends that ride motorcycles? And I was like, I have one. And she's like, yeah. And he lives 2 hours away. And I just realized in that moment, I was like, yeah, okay, so maybe I didn't think that through. And so instead, she finally talked me into it. I was going to buy a little two-seater car. And she's like, hey, look, your favorite thing is to actually just be together with us as a family. You should probably do something that fits the four of us. And I was like, yeah, that's actually really smart. That would make more sense to me. And so anyhow, she came up with the idea of, she's like, why don't you get a boat? She's like, you love the water anyways. Why don't you get a boat? And I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. So I buy a boat. Okay. And the first boat I bought, I just bought it. That's a whole other story. But the whole thing is I bought a boat, I paid cash and I was super excited about it. And I saw a friend of mine who's very, very, very wealthy. And I told him, hey, I bought a boat, and I was very proud. And I thought he would be proud. I bought a boat for me, my family. We go out on the weekends and we do boating now. And he goes, that's awesome that you bought a boat. I'm glad that you're having fun. He goes, but question, how did you pay for it? And I said, well, I paid cash, of course, because I pay cash for everything. And he goes, see, that's the difference between me and you. He goes, what I would have done instead, I would have taken that money. I would have put a down payment on a house. I would have bought a residential property, made it cash flow me $500 a month, and then gone and borrowed and leveraged the debt on a boat and make the house pay off the boat.
Hmm.
And he said this. He said, never spend your hard-earned money on a liability. Only spend your hard-earned money on an asset and make the asset generate cash so it will pay for your liabilities. And that little flip right there just spiraled me out to where it was like, okay, if I'm going to go bust my butt for something, I'm going to go bust it to buy an asset. So the asset makes monthly, quarterly, annual income. And then that income is what I get to spend my liability on. And so once that hit, all of a sudden everything flipped in my brain. And I would say that's the biggest thing, because that's the first part, how you allocate assets versus liabilities and teach yourself to crave. So now I crave investments, investment properties, investing in someone else's business. Like I'm craving investments now. It took me a little while to kind of retrain my brain, but I crave investments now. And then the second thing I had to do is I had to basically think differently about what was an investment and what was an expense. And especially when it came to my time. And that was the biggest thing, was realizing what was the investment and what was the expense? What relationships? So it starts with relationships. What relationships are investments and what relationships are expenses? Because until I looked at it, I realized I was spending a lot of time that were relationship expenses, that were liabilities. And I wasn't spending enough time on relationship assets, because I tell you, I'm telling you right now, there are people in your world that if you talk to them once a quarter, they would help you. Like, your best referral sources in your database right now are the people who need the least from you.
Hmm.
They are the
Yep.
people who need the least from you. And then the people who wear you out are helping you the least.
Right.
And because it has to do with an asset produces. What does an asset do? It provides, it gives. What does a liability do? It takes and extracts. Human beings are no different.
Is that
Beings.
ROI, right?
It is. There's a return on investment. And ultimately, there's, but even before we get to ROI, because now an ROI is always sits on top of an asset no matter what. It's just a matter of how much ROI. But a liability has no ROI. It has lost opportunity. It has LOI, lost opportunity
Um,
income. It's a significant percentage of decrease of what it's extracting from you. And so if you line up those things, okay, here's how I interact with my money, and here's how I interact with relationships, because relationships is your emotional choice that you're making with people, which also is a direct reflection of our emotional choice that we make with our money. And then the other thing is, what also the correlation you'll find, what we spend liabilities on is typically to either make happy, impress, or try to keep the people in our lives that are already the liabilities.
okay, can I give some real-time examples here? So for me, having a real estate team, when I had a real estate team, I did a lot of hiring for relief. I hired people that I liked. And again, it was just that I try to put everything in the same bucket. And then this was the other issue too, where I was like, okay, well, if I'm spending time investing time into and pouring back into my team, it should come back to me in like probably income, right? Like it should come back to me in some kind of form of like a growing team, a great culture, all these things. But the crazy part is that I uh, I didn't have myself thinking about all the other relationships. What relationships am I saying no to because I keep saying yes to these relationships? And honestly, my expectations were a little off too, right? Where I realized that all of a sudden I would kept pouring into these team members, and again kind of seeking something that I really shouldn't have been seeking from the team members. I really should
Mhm,
I honestly was wanting that community outside of my business, and I was
mhm,
craving those relationships and those friendships, but I put that all in the same bucket. And then what's when someone leaves you, right? When someone leaves you, you're like, you poured into them, you did that, and then all of a sudden one thing goes wrong and they're out, and you're like, well, now I know how much they valued me.
mhm.
I know you have a lot to say on that.
There's a whole thing with that. And I would say is if you're probably on this call, you already know that you're a giver and not a taker. And when you're a giver, you are naturally going to be taken advantage of by takers. And it doesn't mean you should stop being a giver. It just means you have to start seeing takers faster. So you just have to spot them faster. It's not easy, but I would say is number one, I like a thing I'll pass this on to you. I say this to my kids all the time. Never let someone else's choice take your power away from you. Because if I choose to change the way I am for someone else, I'm giving my power away to them, which means I'm giving my identity away to them. So if I'm generous and someone takes advantage of my generosity, I'm not going to stop being generous. I'm going to keep being me. They're going to have to deal with the consequences of their own choice for taking advantage. And I will tell you, I've been around long enough. It tends to come back around to those people. It's not immediate, but it tends to come back around to them, sadly. So it tends to not work out for them as long as I don't shift off of who I knew I'm supposed to be. So I think that's super critical. You're going to find yourself, you're going to get manipulated, taken advantage of. And when you're a giver and people are takers, they just take. And so they don't have the appreciation because when you're a giver and someone gives to you have a genuine appreciation for what they have to give. And when you're not, you don't think anything of it. It's discarded, you know, it's a
Yeah.
paper cup. So that's why you have to look at this and go, okay, how do I look at my assets versus my liabilities? And then the other thing is every time I'm making an expenditure or I'm going to like invest in something, I have to ask why. And here's what it comes down to. I've been privileged enough to accomplish some things in my life that I've been able to purchase whatever I've wanted. Okay. And I will tell you, every time I've gotten it, I'm happy with it for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then after that, I'm like, all right, then now what? You know, like it's like, well, now what do I do? And I realize is that everything now is just so as a tool. So remember this, money is a crowbar. I'm going to use it. It's like a big rock bar. If I have an 8-foot bar, I can move really big rocks. If I have a 3-foot bar, I can move a lot smaller rocks. So whatever the case is, it's just leverage. That's all money is. It's just a tool. I can't get excited about the money. I have to get excited about what it leverages. And ultimately, if we trace it back, what are we really after? It's the experiences with the people that we love and we care about the most is really what it's going to come down to. So like, Danny, you brought up the Lexus F Sport, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't wrong that you wanted the Lexus. It was what was the purpose of the vehicle? The purpose of the vehicle was to transport your family around to give them the best possible experience. My brother-in-law right now, he's contemplating getting a Tesla. And he's like, "Man, they're really expensive." And I said, "You should get it." Because one, he's a horrible driver to begin with. He's terrifying on the road. And number two, he needs the self-driving because he lives very far from where he lives. He lives in Miami, and so traffic's really, really bad. If he got the self-driving, he would actually mentally be more attentive to his children, and he can afford it. So that's why I was just like, he should get it. He should absolutely get it because it would actually be a better experience for him and his kids.
Yeah. Well, it's making well, I was gonna say, like, maybe just making sure, like, again, making sure you're going through that filtration of asking why. Why am I getting this? And then the other thing too is also being held accountable. Okay. So I think that's another thing where it's like, let's say he does get that, right? But let's say for some reason he ends up not being as, again, attentive to his kids or whatever it is. Like, what if he gets the time back, or takes that stress off of him, but then he reallocates that to something that is, again, where it's like, oh, cool, you built some more time for you to, like, and I'm not going to say that's for him, but like to doom scroll, like, to ignore your family. Like, I think there's a little bit of that self accountability.
Well, or like you don't see yourself in the equation. This is, moms are the worst at this, in my opinion. So, mamas, don't get mad at me, but hear me out. Is you won't see the need for yourself. It's the we finally made it to Disney for a week, and we have the VIP flash pass matching T-shirts, but mom's glued to her phone the whole time because she's still negotiating 3 deals, right? And it's like, okay, what you allocated is how you were going to get your family there, and you allocated how you were going to pay for your family to be there. You did not allocate how you were going to find someone else to cover you and pick up your load so you could actually be present in the moment. And so it's like a lot of times I will see, guys were instinctively a little more self-protective than women are, but they will worry about taking care of everyone else and not think about how important they are. And in those moments, that's the experiences you're actually there is to experience it with, not sit like you're sitting in an observation booth watching everyone have a great time. And a lot of times the catch is you finally deliver these things that you always wanted for yourself, because that's what we want for our kids, to provide for them the things that we never had. And then we finally get it for them, and we didn't consider ourselves in the equation and how important was us for able to be there and be present and participate. And that's the part where it's like we have to see what money does, right? So it's like, so like if I use to go back to the boat, my kids at the ages they were doing what I didn't realize on the first boat. So I traded in, I got a better boat, one that was a lot easier to operate and drive and all that, but it actually had more capacity because my kids were becoming teenagers. Because my wife and I got smarter about how we were spending our money. And so instead, we purchased a boat that actually provided a better experience because I could get my kids to hang out with me for 4 hours straight without phones as long as I stuck them on a boat. And that was and it put my kids' friends, when they're teenagers, their friends' opinions are more important than your own. So it gave me 4 hours to be with their friends to influence how their friends think. And all I had to do was just show up and be cool dad. And if I was cool dad and I said something, my kids' friends would be like, well, your dad says you should do this, Sophie. So my kids' friends had my back because I was investing into them, because when we're on the boat, all the phones go away and we're completely locked in on spending time together. So the investment was massive and has already paid dividends in my relationship with my children and my children's friends. So I'm just saying but I had to be clear. If I had my boat on the vision board, there's nothing wrong with the boat on the vision board. The problem is if I don't understand what the boat's for. What's the boat to leverage to create? It's the same thing with our house that we had. We didn't need it anymore. But the house that we had was the central house. We wanted to create a central house that every kid that was connected to our family could come feel like they had a place, and they even had their own stuff. And we literally bought blankets and pillows, and my wife bought packs of toothbrushes. So that way every kid who ever slept at our house literally had their own toothbrush at our house. How she kept up with it, I don't know. But she did that kind of stuff. Why? Because we were focused on what was the house for. It wasn't a big house to be a big house. It was a large home so we could host 50 people on a property at once.
Yeah,
And
it feels
that's
so.
how we wanted to live.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, going back to that wealth, so because I wanna open up the last 10 minutes of this call so that way we can obviously get some inputs, get some feedback, get some get the dots connected, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's like getting really back to that root of that, like, again, where, money is a tool, money is the vehicle, those kind of things, but to be like, what's the ultimate reason? Because if someone was working to buy a mansion one day but had nothing to put in the mansion, have nobody to put into the mansion, nobody wants to be around that person. And it's like the real wealth is really, for one, I feel like for my own journey with following Christ he's been working on my character big time. That he's been working on my character big time because he does know I love people. He knows that I want to help people. He knows that I have a big heart, but also to the point of going, I need to make sure that I'm someone people want to be around. So, because at the end of the day, I could be working so hard to get all these things. And if I don't have anybody to be around, then I'm going to feel pretty empty, just like that motorcycle. Why would I buy a motorcycle to be by myself?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that kind of always getting back to that true reason why. And I love like the boat, the reason, like I think about the fact that I always want to have something that would allow my kids to want to be home more and be here more and invite their friends over
Mhm.
versus they want to leave the house or be away from us or whatever it is. And then actually, something our, church brought up this last week was, just even just creating a environment of laughter, right? To being able to go but this is those little investments. We do not know how what we're truly treasuring or valuing and investing in when it comes to those pieces that it's like, again, that's gonna be the thing that's gonna make you feel wealthy, you know? I'll have, Dustin speak on the things that he built into his life with his kids that I bet you makes him feel like the wealthiest man on earth, and it has nothing to do with money.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's and that and really that the layup on that is it's basically date every person you love as much as that might. So my son and I, we have one-on-one time. My daughter and I, we have one-on-one time. My wife and I, we have one-on-one time. Like there's specifically carved out. And then that's the other thing too, not only from a date perspective, but it's a mental focus. We don't just go do stuff together. It's purposeful. So down to my wife and my daughter, my son's super easy because I mean, he's basically just my mini me. So it's like hanging out with myself. So he's the easiest one in the world to hang out with. My daughter and my wife, I actually write questions. So I come up with questions, things that I know that they're interested in that I don't fully understand. So like my daughter, we literally just yesterday, she's really into this artist, Olivia Dean. And so what did I do? I put on the Olivia Dean album, make sure I knew about it, asked her some questions. Hey, and of course, I'm the nerd, so I have to look up 5 fun facts about Olivia Dean, where she grew up and where she's from and what her influences are. So I can talk about this with my daughter. And boom, we have this entire conversation around Olivia Dean. And all I had to do was just do a little research and thank God for Chat GPT because I can cheat now. So it doesn't take me as long to do the research anymore. But that's why I say the wealth, if you think about it, the wealth at the end of your life, and Danny knows this, I believe that you should goal set and write a journal entry as if it is your 90th birthday. And if you will write a journal entry as if it's your 90th birthday and all the people that are spending time and coming to be with you and what it means to you, then that will create the roadmap for essentially the crescendo of your life and how you should allocate and see wealth. Because again, money's a tool to deliver experiences with things, but at the end of the day, it's the experiences with the people that you love that you're after. And so if I can have that and I invested well in those relationships, then the money just allowed me more time and cool experiences to get to know them more. So if that's the case, that's really what my wealth plan is. So it's like if I was going to say, what's my ultimate wealth plan? I would make sure your wealth plan has a face for every person that you love. And you have a wealth plan for every person that you love, not only financially, but emotionally. What's your connections? What do you do together? What do you want to experience with them? What do you want to go through with them? My biggest thing is I want my kids to know that at a moment's notice, I will burn down the entire planet for them if they just even ask for, if they even slightly insinuate. Like we have a text code thing. I'll pass this out to parents. If they text me the letter X for any reason, I already have their location. I'm gone. I am headed their way, and they know that immediately. That's all they have to do is just text the letter X and boom, I'm gone. So like there's things like that that I want to achieve that level to where at no moment would they ever guess of where I would show up for them. So there's some things like that that's to me that's wealth. If I can achieve that in their minds, that's wealth.
Yeah, yeah, it's like that just that spot. It's just you know for sure, because that's the thing I've noticed, the more I slowed down, the more that I was, like, able to be like, I would hate to miss out on my kid's childhood because I was too busy working." Like, that is the part where I'm like, I do not want that sense of well, my mom's busy because she has to afford this house. My mom's busy because she has to afford these things.
Right.
And to the reality is that it's like, well, again, liabilities, what are how are they is it giving me some kind of ROI? Is it giving me a place to where I can have 20 kids sleep over?
Yeah.
Is it a place for me to build community that might be building like, let's say, just building relationships with my neighbors, which ultimately could recycle right into my real estate business because my real estate business is relationship based. So if I'm relationship based and if I'm building bigger community, but again, it's the root of that, right? I think that's the root that I think we have to constantly return to because if we don't, then all of a sudden now we're getting stuck in ego. Now we're getting stuck in status. We're getting stuck in the trying to keep up and trying to get the nicest thing. And I promise you, I have put I've had Louis Vuitton pulled up multiple times and I have picked out the purse. I have picked out the purse because I was like, I don't think I've ever seen myself as a person who would ever spend that kind of money on a purse. And I would always pick out the purse, but then I would literally go there and I would look at it and I'll be like, that's $3,000. $3,000, something that I can put away to go towards either that Disney vacation that we want to do as a family, because I want that as a memory for my children. But just like had Dustin had brought up before, and we'll get an open discussion here. But Dustin had brought up before, what's the point of me working so hard to go on this vacation if I'm going to not have time to be a part of that vacation? Josh and I spent a lot of money to go to a Jamaica resort that we had our own villa, we had our own butlers. Man, we felt like we were on top of the world. I also had a team, so I felt like I was leveraged and I was like, okay, perfect. I'm leveraged. I can go on this vacation. I did not give him time. Like my mind was somewhere else. I did not prepare myself for that vacation to truly be able to unplug. I felt like I needed to be there and still feel like I was reachable for my team and all that. And I'm like, that was the wrong relationship. None of those team members are with me.
Right.
And so this poor guy, we just spent the most money we've ever spent on a vacation. It was literally the most beautiful thing we've ever experienced. And I was half there.
Yeah. It's and that's why I say it's like again, there's no stones being thrown because we've done it. Like I'm saying that not. I'm with you, Danny. It's not because no, I never do this. I never mess this up. I'm always 100% on. I mean, there was a time we were in. My wife's from Brazil. We're literally at a beach house in Brazil, and I am doing a conference, an all day Zoom conference. It was during COVID and we went during COVID. And so what did I do? I was there and we had a wonderful time at the beach. But guess what? My kids remember. Yeah, I remember when dad was like, he wasn't even with us because we did all this stuff and they went and did some cool stuff. And I paid for it because I felt bad. So I paid for them to do cool stuff. Well, every time they're like, oh, remember we did this and we did this and we did this and we did this. And I'm like, was that the day where I was on the conference? They're like, oh, right. You weren't there for that. Oh, right. You weren't there for that. And it was just like this. Why did I do that? Why did I book a conference when I knew full well I was going to Brazil? Like, why? I don't know why I did that. Why I didn't cancel it. Why I didn't find somebody else to take my spot. I don't know why. So there's several things. I've made a lot of mistakes on that. So that's why I say, please, nobody hear me throwing any shade on anybody here. Believe me,
Yeah.
I've made all those mistakes. And so, but I will tell you is this is the learning lesson. It's not that we don't screw up. It's that do we learn from it or not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so if anybody wants to turn their mic on, turn their video on, I would throw something into the chat, just kind of things that you're taking away, or if you have any questions, I would love to hear anybody on this call. Rob, Jennifer, Bonnie, anyone have any input or Liza, I hope I'm not saying that wrong. I'm assuming it's Liza.
It is Liza. And several things that you all mentioned hit me really hard. The thing about liability and asset. And wow, because my husband's always telling me, why do you want to buy another car? Why do your car's fine and let's buy a house. And when you all said that, it just hit me. Buy the asset and then that's going to pay for the liability that I want.
That's Liza, if that's all you take away from today, if that little shift, I mean, it's really changed a lot of things for my family just the second that clicked for me.
Yeah.
So,
And it blew my mind. Thank you. I know my husband's going to say, I've been telling you that.
Hey, you know what? Just because it's Valentine's Day, just go home. Don't even say you were on a call today. Just be like, you know what, honey, I woke up this morning and I just realized you were right. And that's it. You don't have to get him anything for Valentine's. That's the gift. Like, that's the gift
Wow.
that keeps on giving, you know?
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Does anybody else have anything that they want to bring up, take away, say that they are taking away from today's call? Maybe a new perspective, a new framework of just kind of seeing wealth and being able to connect it to your business?
For sure. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yep.
Perfect. I just wanted to say these are the conversations that we need to be having more of in this industry because it's always about accolades and awards and this GCI, which is who was that? Pat Hyben way back in the day said that was an ECI or ego commission income. And it's, I don't want to call it balance, but it's figuring out what's most important in life and latching onto that and designing your business around that versus, and I'll admit, as everyone else has already said, like I'm very subject to my calendar, and a lot of times family suffers and other things suffer. My own personal free time, which I have almost zero of, suffers. So I just want to say thanks for the conversation. This is definitely much needed, and you've got my attention. So I appreciate it.
That's awesome.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah. I love you brought that up, right? Because you're right. We live in a space, the real estate space, we are celebrating production and hustle. And there's no one's going to give you an award for dad of the year at your brokerage. You know, no one's going to give you that. Like, and it's such an interesting conversation that we have to make sure we maintain because, we want to be God, family, and business, but we also do live in an industry that is very time demanding and demands of us on nights and weekends and things like that. And look, sometimes you got to do it. And I'm not, how you manage the time. It's like, the people are like, I've got a hard out at 5:30 PM. That's wonderful. And if you can make that work, fantastic. And if it's not costing you thousands of dollars by saying no to business, great. And I know a lot of people, they're like, no, I can't do that. It's not about the time allocation. What it is about investing, right? The whole thing is, am I investing into relationships? We're in real estate. We're not going to be 9 to 5ers. So because we're not going to be 9 to 5ers, how do we invest into the relationships that we love the most? And it may not work out in the time schedules we want, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for being on today's call. As he had already said, we've had these conversations many times.
Yep.
What I love about this business is that, well, for one, just 2026 in general, that things are just way more innovative these days. And I'm like, Dustin, we can be bringing out a lot of these conversations that we've had. I cannot be the only agent that has struggled with this.
No.
He's been doing this for 23 years. He's been around it. He's like, yep, unfortunately, we're all very similar. We all kind of run the same path. And, but I'm hoping to be bringing more of those intentional, purposeful conversations that real estate needs to be hearing more of and a little less about just this constant chase of leads and more income and more money, just whatever it is, more the elite status, whatever, like just any of those things when you're over here, like, let's go be proud of the lives we're building. So, all right, just a reminder for everybody, Building on Purpose is every second Tuesday of the month. So the second Tuesday of every month, I'm going to be doing this mastermind. Invite your friends. I don't care what brokerage they're with, but I would love to have more conversations like this, Building on Purpose. And if you guys want to connect with Dustin, you can find him on social media. I have challenged him to be more on social media because he's my Gen X friend. And he has a millennial friend that can help him with all those things.
Yes.
So we're very easy to connect with online. And we hope that you guys have a blessed Tuesday and would love to hear from you if you have any input on this. Make sure to comment on my social media everywhere I posted today. And yeah, thank you, everybody.
Cool. Thanks, Danny. Appreciate you.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
We'll see you.